Okay, welcome to everyone who's joining us for this edition of the Entrepreneur Mind Hacks. It's a couple of books that I put together, pulling together all these different amazing entrepreneurs. And today we're talking with one of the contributors, Stephanie Calahan. Stephanie, say hello.
Hello, good to see everybody.
Yeah, glad to be doing this, and it'll be forever on YouTube, hopefully. So we'll
Right.
have it up there for you to see at any time. Stephanie was one of the more prolific contributors to my book. She had, hang on a second, my wife is calling. I thought I turned that off. Stephanie gave quite a few different contributions to the book, and we're going to be talking about two of those today. But before we get into those, we're going to do a quick fire round of 5 either-or questions for Stephanie to answer so that all of us getting to know her can get to know her on maybe a little bit different level. So Stephanie, are you game?
I'm game, a little nervous. I haven't had a pop quiz in a while, Carrie.
Yeah, that's okay. These will be easy ones.
All right,
here we
all
go.
right.
Here we go. Chocolatey or fruity?
Ooh, chocolatey.
Chocolatey. You know, every woman I've asked so far says chocolatey.
Well, and that could be because I'm allergic to cocoa, so it's a
Ah.
really no-no for me to have. It's that temptation.
Yeah, so when you can have it, you will
Yeah,
have it. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. The next one, Mercedes-Benz or pickup truck?
Oh, probably a Mercedes.
Yeah, I wondered about that one. Okay. Romance or thriller?
Thriller.
Thriller.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that one.
Yeah.
All right. And mountains or beach?
Beach.
Beach.
That's where we're going for spring break. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Where are you headed?
Punta Cana.
Punta Cana. Whoa.
Yeah.
I can't even say that, much less know where it is. So, where
South
is
of
that?
here. In
Yes.
Mexico.
In Mexico. Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. And the last one, rainy or snowy?
Ooh, I don't like either, but I'd have to pick rainy.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks for going through that with me, Stephanie. It's kind of fun to hear someone's personality from those kind of perspectives.
Sure.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is misplaced actions in your business. That was one of the titles that you put on a chapter. So let's start big picture and just summarize for me when you say that or you entitled this chapter that. What do you have in mind?
Well, what I've observed with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they're busy being busy. But being busy doesn't equal productive. It doesn't actually move you towards your goals. And frequently when I blog, when I write, when I talk, I'm encouraging people to take inspired action and really move their business forward because a lot of people are procrastinating. But what I started finding was that there's a conflict between inspired action and being busy. Because what you really want to be able to do is take action that makes sense. And so sometimes we have misplaced action. And the story that I share in the book is an example of a salesperson who isn't doing all that great with his sales. You know, he has this route that he goes on and he meets with his prospects, but the sales aren't that fantastic. And he decides that he needs some training, and so he goes to a motivational seminar. And he goes and he gets really super pumped up and yeah, I'm going, I can do this. I feel good about myself. And he comes back and he goes on his route again. And now he still doesn't know how to sell. He's just more enthusiastic about it. And so now he's like really in the faces of everybody that are his prospects and potentially even making fewer sales than he did before. That's misplaced action because he didn't really need more motivation. He was already out going and doing, or at least attempting to do. He needed sales training. He needed the ability to learn how to sell. And so it would have been better if he had gone and done some kind of sales training than the motivational stuff so that he could be more effective with the actions that he was taking.
So what do you think contributes to misplaced actions? How do people get started doing things that really aren't what they need, but they, for some reason, think they should be doing it?
I think it has a lot to do with all the information that we have available to us today and how great people are getting at writing marketing copy. And so what I mean by that is there's all kinds of bright, shiny objects that come at us through social media, through blog sites, through our email. Even, you know, we get text messages now with this stuff that we sign up for, not to mention all traditional media of TV, newspaper, radio, and so on. And just focusing in on business owners, since our book is about entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're told by every single expert and guru down the stream. You have to do this, you have to do that. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs, I work directly with purpose-driven entrepreneurs who come and they have so many different things that they're doing. And one of the first questions I'll ask is, okay, how is this driving your strategy? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm doing all the things that the experts are telling me to do. And so it's really about taking a step back and pausing for a minute and saying, what is my real goal? Because sometimes we're so busy doing, we lose sight a little bit of where we were heading in the first place. And that's how the misplaced action can start happening.
So what I hear you saying in another, I'll just rephrase it the way I'm hearing it, is clarity about why you're doing what you're doing matters.
Oh, dead on. Absolutely. Clarity and alignment are two of my favorite words. An alignment meaning sometimes there are things that other people do in their business that helps them move their business forward with amazing ease, that when we do it, just doesn't quite work as well. And it's kind of like the guy going to the motivational training and being really motivated and still not knowing how to sell. So an example of that could be somebody that gets training on how to blog for their business, but sitting down at their keyboard causes them all kinds of anxiety and stress. They may have exact clarity on what they should write on. They may have exact clarity on who they're writing to, which is all fantastic. But when it comes to that particular mode of communication, it's something that's really difficult for them. So instead, and I actually had a client with this situation, that's why it's popping to mind, this particular client was fantastic at speaking her heart just right off the cuff. And so I suggested that rather than doing blog posts, why don't you either start a radio show or a podcast where you can speak your message and then have it transcribed so that you can still have the written word. And so that was alignment for her. She had the clarity, but it wasn't quite aligned right. It's kind of like a chiropractor that does the alignment for us so that our backs don't hurt.
Yeah,
you can do the same thing in your business in picking the right actions that are in full alignment with who you are as well.
I love it. I love it. I was recently reading a book, actually I'm still reading it, where the guy's talking about these 6 steps to help you get your business on track and headed towards your goals and all that. And the very first thing he mentions is clarity.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning to see even more so. I mean, I've known it for a while. You got to know what you're doing, but spending the time, it takes a lot of time. Tell me what would you suggest as a process for someone to go through to discover clarity about what it is they're doing and why?
I think that clarity is such an important aspect in whether you're defining your actions or even defining your business. And whether you've been in a business for a short amount of time or a long amount of time, I'd encourage you to take a step back and look at some of these questions. So one of the first questions that I would encourage you to look at, it actually steps outside of even what you're doing to say, am I working in a time frame that's my ideal day? So there are some people that are night people, there are some people that are morning people, and depending on the business model you have, maybe you're not working in the right time frame for yourself. So an example of that for you is me. I am not a morning person. I used to argue with my alarm clock all the time, and I used to force myself to start meetings at 8 in the morning. And I wasn't at my best. In fact, sometimes I was still a little crabby, and that wasn't working really well. And when I sat back and I said, this is my business. I can structure this whatever way I want to structure it. What does that look like? And so my day now, actually, after my son gets dropped off at school at 8 in the morning, from 8 to 10, that's my time for my recharge. That's when I meditate, that's when I pray, that's when I do exercising, and it's my time to get really full so that when I start my meetings at 10 in the morning, I am raring and really strong to go. And so that's a clarity that I needed about me. Another clarity that's really, really important to have is being really clear on who you serve. When you just say, I'll work with anybody that'll pay me. Frequently, your marketing message and your communication isn't clear enough for people to say, oh, they're talking to me. So when you get really, really clear on who you work with, your marketing message and everything else becomes much more crystallized. And then getting really clear on what problems you solve. So you know who you're working with and you know what problems they have. How are you going to solve them and what solutions are you going to provide for them? Those are 3 key clarity items, although there's a lot of different ones too.
Sure. And those are great. I really resonate with that one about who you're serving. Or who you're aiming to serve, because my primary business, my main breadwinning business that I've got right now, I recently did an email marketing campaign, and I was just blessed to figure out who I was sending it to before I actually really thought the whole thing through. And the results were astounding. The amount of people who actually were responding to this cold email, so to speak, it was just amazing. And to do with, I was speaking to people who had the pain I was trying to fix. And that makes a huge difference.
Well, you know, in my business, for a number of years, I worked with coaches who wanted me to pinpoint what I did first. And for some people, that works really, really well. For me, it was a problem because, I mean, I graduated from college with 2 degrees and a couple specialties because I have so many different interest areas. So picking what I did kept me stalled, and I would procrastinate. Once I shifted that to being, who did I want to work with? Who lit me up? Who was exciting to spend time with, and define that on a multitude of different levels, then all of a sudden it was crystal clear the type of work that I needed to do.
Yeah, that's great. Now I want to highlight a quote that you said in the book and have you expand on it a little bit. You've already talked about it a little at the beginning, but you said being productive means you're taking action on things that are leading you to something. Okay, now expound on that a little bit for us.
So that goes back to what I was talking about earlier around having purposeful action in what you do. So, for example, you had that email campaign that you said you just sent out that was really successful. You had a goal with that email campaign, right?
Yeah.
And so that goal was something that you kept in mind as you were developing each, I'm assuming the campaign had more than one email in it, right? And so there was a consistent theme throughout that email series, and you had a goal in mind. What's really interesting is there's a lot of people that write email series that don't necessarily have a goal. They say, well, I'd like them to do my Facebook page, or I'd like them to be on my blog. I don't care which. Let me give 5 different options and they can pick. But what happens with your prospects when they see a slew of different actions is they frequently don't take any.
Yeah.
So when you have a specific purpose in mind and then you tie inspired action to that specific purpose, it can become really powerful.
Yeah, I've noticed that dynamic happening even in myself as I go to certain restaurants. There's a place we love to go, and we still go, but it's called Cheesecake Factory. And
that is an awesome place.
Yeah, and what frustrates me is their menu has 70,000 items on it.
Yes,
and
it does.
And I would rather just have 15 really good ones and pick from those, because I wind up picking the same things I've always chosen because I know what it is. And it's just one of those too many choice things. Well, Stephanie, let's move to your next contribution that we're going to focus in on. And you said beforehand that this is your favorite.
It is.
And it's why being will trump doing every time. And that begs for some clarity. So give us your thumbnail on what you mean by that.
Sure. So for those of you that don't know, a good portion of my owning my own business life, I did specifically productivity coaching. Yet I was a productivity coach that didn't focus on to-do lists. So that was something that kind of made me a little different. And this holds the same type of feel to it. A lot of us are told if you want to get stuff done, I mean, we just talked about taking inspired action, that we have an action list, a to-do list, a task list, whatever you want to call it. But what I find is that also leads into a lot of people taking misplaced action. And so what I encourage people to do, in addition to their to-do list, maybe not necessarily replacing their to-do list, but starting their day with what I call a to-be list. Because oftentimes we wake up, we get moving, whatever kinds of hectic, crazy stuff happens in the middle of the day. The dog did something you weren't expecting, a kid gave you something that they needed turned into school right away, a client calls with an emergency, whatever. Unexpected stuff happens all the time. And we just kind of go throughout our day and we let our emotions take whatever avenue they're going to take with things that are hitting at us all the time. What I suggest you do instead is get really purposeful and conscious about how you want to be present in the day. So one thing that I do before I even get out of bed in the morning, and I encourage my clients to do it as well, is decide who I'm going to be. So am I going to be loving, compassionate, smart, funny, energetic, enthusiastic? There's slews and slews of different adjectives that we can use to describe a person. You can use those words to determine how you're going to approach the circumstances that are presented to you within a day. So, for example, you're out on the road, you're on the interstate or freeway, and you're in traffic, and all of a sudden somebody cuts you off. And that makes you really angry, and gosh darn it, and it ruins your day, and you go into the next meeting and you're really, really frustrated. But if you build a habit of choosing who you're going to be in your day, and maybe one of the things that you choose to be is forgiving, maybe that's one of your words for the day, and that person cuts you off, you're going to approach it in a different way. You're going to choose, you know what, maybe they were in a hurry, maybe they were rushing to the hospital, maybe they were in labor. The way that you look at that situation all of a sudden changes by who you choose to be within the functions of what you're doing within your day, and your results change too.
Yeah, I'm going to dig into that a little bit, because I know that we live in a culture that, in my opinion, is very emotionally driven. It's whatever feels right at the moment. That's what we do, et cetera, et cetera. And I think in a bad sense, we've kind of conditioned ourselves to think that whatever we feel is what's true. So let's go back to that situation on the highway. Say you did spend your time in the morning saying, "I'm going to be a forgiving person. I'm going to be, a loving person." But then the cutoff happens, and what you feel immediately is anger. Okay, where do you go with that? What happens there to help you get back to that mindset you determined in the morning?
So what I find with almost every private client I have gets a transformation quick start program called Defining Who You Are. And it includes this concept. And within that assignment, then, they have to practice being, which sounds really weird. I mean, we wake up and we're somebody every day. But it's just like everything else. It's, brushing your teeth, washing yourself, learning how to ride a bike. Everything new that we bring into our lives, we have to practice before it becomes a habit. So it could be that if you're new to this concept, that when the guy cuts you off, you're still angry and your day's still ruined. But the concept is then, at the end of the day, you're also doing a review, and you're flashing through your day to say, okay, how was I at being who I wanted to be? And what happens is, by making that determination at the beginning of the day and then doing a quick review, I'm not talking about hours, I'm talking about 5-10 minutes at the end of your day, where you review, okay, how good did I do with that? Over time, you find that you're doing better and better. And the review isn't to judge, it isn't to criticize. I say it's like a scientist looking at an experiment to say, how did that's not exactly the way I expected it to turn out. Now, how could I do that a little differently? What it is it's making ourselves be accountable for the way we bring ourselves to the world. And a lot of us don't do that, so it's new practice to start that. But over time, it becomes something that's just a regular thing.
That reminds me of one of the sections I wrote in the book about small adjustments mattering.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really, you're describing a process of assessment with adjustments made as a response to the assessment.
Right.
So you assess how you responded to the goal that you had in mind for the day, throughout the day, and then, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this a little differently, or I'm going to put my mind in this place a little bit, just whatever fits the circumstance.
Right. The other thing that's really interesting about, if you take on this challenge, I'll challenge everybody watching, this is something anybody can do, and every single client that's ever tried it has found that their results in their life and their business improve significantly. But when you take on this challenge, the other thing, by making the choice at the beginning of the day and then doing the review at the end of the day, is you start identifying what your triggers are. You start figuring out, where are things that I have control and of my own emotions, and where are those things that just they just get me, and then you can start exploring those triggers and deciding, well, why are they triggering me and what's going on? And that's all that mindset stuff, that when we can get a better understanding of what makes us tick, and every one of us is different, the more we can get a better understanding, the more we can work through the changes that we want to work through and own and embrace the things that we don't want to change.
Yeah, that makes great sense. Now, you mentioned there when you were giving the example of the freeway, you said, the different mindset could help you to consider what might be going on in the other person's life. Maybe they're pregnant and on their way to the hospital. Maybe this, maybe that. What are some habits or some tips you would give about maybe they're mind hacks that you would give about how to get yourself into a considerate place like that? Because I think many of us, myself included at times, just run through our day with our agenda on our minds, and God forbid somebody get in our way because they may not like it. What can we do to get our mind in a more considerate place like that?
That's a really great question, and I think it is a little different depending on. That's one reason that when you start your day and you're particularly choosing a particular adjective of how am I going to be. I'm a loving person, I'm a kind person, or I'm an energetic person, or I'm a knowledgeable person. I mean, there's a bunch of different ones that you can use. But when you're going through your day and you're choosing who you're going to be, it's in that moment that you define what that looks like. So forgiving to me could look different than what forgiving to you is. And that's part of the exercise, is defining what that means for you. That's also what makes it really authentic for who you are.
That's great. That's great. Now, another thing that you mentioned in this section of the book, you said this is about being your bigger you. Okay, that's kind of an interesting turn of a phrase. Tell me what you mean about that.
Sure. So a lot of us, as we're going through our day, have highs and lows, and our bigger you, our bigger us, our bigger me, is the person that's standing in their personal power. They're not letting other people step on them, or they're not letting other people take advantage of them, but they're also being their best selves. They're being their best version of themselves. They're not letting fear take control of their mindset. They're not letting their emotions take control of their mindset. They're really in their best elevated place. And I think we can all think of different circumstances where things have happened where, I could have handled that a little better. And that's when we're not really in our bigger space. That's when we're not being our bigger us or our more expansive us. And when you're in your bigger self, you're really able to hold your own personal power, but empower other people too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes sense to me. Now, let's take the natural turn we need to take and say, how do these issues about being versus doing get applied practically in our business? Okay, we're entrepreneurs. I assume entrepreneurs, business owners are watching this. What does all this mindset bunk that we're talking about have to do with business?
Awesome. So let's use sales as an example. Okay, and I'm going to kind of niche it down into an example just so that we can have time to talk about this particular one. So let's say that we have somebody that's a solopreneur, that the way that they make their sales is telephone conversations. Okay? A lot of people, when they get into sales, it's about them in the way that they think about it. Oh my gosh, I hope they buy from me. What can I say to convince them to buy from me? And there's this fear of, what if they don't buy from me? What if they don't like me? What if they don't like what I have to offer? Those are all mindset things. Those are all things that are really common that go through people's minds as they're making sales. But it's a fearful, it's the smaller you perspective that's coming out with that. Now, what if at the beginning of the day we decide that we are going to be an excellent communicator, we're going to be a good connector, we're going to be a good listener, and we're going to be empathetic. And so we walk into the sales conversation and we recognize that if we're going to be all those things, then the conversation can't be about us. It has to be about the person that we're talking to on the other end of the phone, and listening to them and really clearly understanding and defining what the problem is that they have. And then, if it makes sense, offering a solution that allows that person to have their problem resolved. But it's a different space that you're coming into the conversation, because you're thinking about them more than you're thinking about yourself. And everybody that's made that switch in their sales, I mean, it's traditional sales conversation. Make it about them, not about you, right? It's just a different way to go about doing it, and your sales increase significantly when you do that. I mean, you think about it. Anytime you've had somebody try to sell you something, yuck, I don't want that. But when you've had somebody on the phone that provides a solution that you need, and you feel like they've heard you, you feel like they understand you, and now they're delivering something that's a great fit, oh my gosh, yeah, then it's a no-brainer. I'm going to buy from them. And it's all about the delivery of that information to the person that's on the other end of the phone.
Yeah, I heard a sales conversation just this last week, and the guy who was presenting was a very successful salesman, and he was saying, your clients will tell you exactly what they need if you're smart enough to ask them enough questions.
Right.
And that was very clarifying for me. I'm one of those people who's always felt like, sales is a pushy thing and I don't want any part of it, but I'm coming to understand it's more about asking questions, more about caring for the person.
I mean,
and trying to help them.
Absolutely. I actually, when I have my sales conversations, Carrie, I intentionally use the word love. Because for me, if I am being loving to somebody, then I am really looking for their best interest. I'm not looking out for my best interest, I'm looking for their best interest. And if they are my ideal client, then working with me would be in one of their best interests. But it's a whole different frame of reference. And so if I have somebody that's on the line that's not an ideal client, I can still lovingly say, you know what? I really don't think you're ready for this program, or I really don't think this is the next best step for you, but you know what? I can introduce you to somebody that I think would be absolutely perfect. I can do it with full authenticity. I'm not feeling bad about losing a sale. I'm consciously helping that person. I've done that before, and those people have actually referred, so it's not a lose, right? Yeah. And it's if they really are somebody that's my ideal prospect, and I'm coming at it from a loving perspective, I'm not trying to force them into anything. I'm trying to help them figure out and say yes to themselves on a program that's really going to help solve the problems that they have.
Yeah, and I can, just as a further application, I can see how we could pull together that morning decision and time of determining who am I going to be today alongside our schedule for the day.
Yes, absolutely.
And look at everything that's coming up today and say, okay, I have that sales meeting at 2 p.m. I need to be these things in that sales meeting. And so when you walk in the door, you're already reminded subconsciously, okay, this is one of the times that I thought about this morning or prayed about or considered. Speak to that a little bit. How do you integrate those two things real tightly?
So it depends on the person as to what the right application is. For some clients that have applied this, they've found that it's way too overwhelming to pick different states of being for every single activity. And they found that they shut down because it was way too much. And this isn't meant to be something that bogs down your day. It's meant to be something that lifts up your day. So for them, they pick 3 or 4 words at the beginning of the day, and they find ways to apply that throughout their day. For other clients that are more detail-oriented, they found that they really liked taking each activity and defining who they were going to be as they walked into a room. And I have one client that's a speaker, and she has a different set of words for when she's taking the stage than when she's interacting with her son and husband, than when she is doing client work over a video chat. And it really helps her tune into the bigger self that I was mentioning earlier, that person that we just really love to be and in our best moments in life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. You can't necessarily go through the whole day and pick out, I'm going to be this here and this here and this here. You'd feel almost, multiple personality in a way. But if you take each thing in terms of what you've decided overall for the morning, that might be a little more manageable of a way. That's
well,
great.
and I find that I have clients that split down the middle. I have some clients that get really, really detailed with every single activity, and they actually, within their calendar, with their meeting notices, they've put in the meeting notice next to the location, where the location address is. They'll also put their quick words, okay, reminder, so that when the alarm for the meeting pops up, it also reminds them who they want to be. So that's their kind of habit-changing type process. Other people would find that way too overwhelming, and they pick their words at the beginning of the day, and they use those throughout their day. Either way is fine, as long as you fit a way that's in alignment with who you are.
Yeah, that's very good. And that's back to the first thing we talked about of doing intentional actions rather than misplaced actions. Yeah, things that drive your purpose forward. That's great. Well, Stephanie, I'm looking at the clock. We got about a minute here. I see your website there, stephaniecalahan.com. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how people can get in touch with you.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I work with purpose-driven entrepreneurs to help them leverage their business and get their message out with power, ease, and joy so that they can make a powerfully positive difference in the world, exponentially uplevel their profits, and boldly build a business around who they are rather than who somebody else maybe thinks they need to be. And you recognize under that, I really emphasize the power, ease, and joy part of it as well, because I believe that business should be something that adds to your life rather than drains and pulls you down.
Absolutely.
And we work at the intersection of head and heart. So that means we do this mindset stuff, and then we also do the very strategic and implementation pieces within the business as well. And you can find me on stephaniecalahan.com, and I'm all over the web on social media. I'd love if you'd connect me. I am somebody that connects. Carrie and I met here on Google+.
Yep.
I'm not somebody that only broadcasts. I love having conversations as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I would encourage anybody to connect with Stephanie. She is a very generous person and is very willing to come alongside anybody who's got the heart to pursue some good change in their life. So, Stephanie, thanks for your time today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you for your contributions to the book. It's going to be a great asset for a lot of people.
I've really enjoyed. I've speed read through both books, and now I'm going back with pen and highlighter. And there's some really good stuff in there.
There really is some great folks. So thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.